Again, for Tom Chatfield, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ian, and thank you for having me here. So yes, I am an author, and that means this is, I suppose, the ideas bit, the nice, soft, after-lunch, touchy-feely, no statistics, feel free to disagree with me, arty bit. But I've been very, very interested. I'm going to try not to say this word. I've sort of got my buzzword bingo all full up already. It's been around a lot. It's been around mostly outside the industry. It is, among other things, perhaps a very late, if timely, recognition of the power of games, of the power of the lessons they have to offer. I think the lessons that games have to offer are extraordinarily important in other areas, and education has been mentioned, and I could bang on about that all day. But I've spent about a year banging on about that already in other talks. So I wanted to talk about the flip side of that today, and to talk about the two sides of playfulness in a slightly different way, because as much as, I'm going to say it, gamification is the way that people outside the industry talk about it and often misrepresent it as well as acknowledge its power, I think that mirrors back into the industry, and I think we've reached a point when things are going in all sorts of different directions simultaneously, and in which some things, as we've heard today, are being codified with extraordinary power in terms of metrics, in terms of the patterns of behavior and engagement you can get in social games. And that is amazing. But I think a dark side, so to speak, comes with this, an anxiety about progress, and also perhaps an overbalancing of what is going on inside games and how we talk about them towards one side rather than the other. So I want to try and take you through a few ideas in that area. Games everywhere, absolutely everywhere. I wrote a book that came out last year, and by my crude reckoning, 500 million people more are engaging in digital play in some form now than when I was first writing cheerfully optimistic things about games taking over the world. So I feel vindicated, I must say. But also, it is digital play that's going on. And this is interesting. I want to tell you about my childhood very briefly. I was very happy, particularly Freudian there. But I used to play with blocks. I was always a gamer. I used to love playing with blocks, and you can imagine I used to build them. I had a younger brother, and if my favorite mode of play was doing this, my brother's favorite mode of play was doing this immediately afterwards. And I always thought when I was young that would make an awesome game. Sadly, it already has and got there ahead of me. In fact, hundreds of people got there ahead of me. We heard about boom blocks earlier. A lot of games have been based on this very sort of elemental mechanic, so I can't do it for the first time, sadly. We talked about 200 million people on this game, and this amazes me. The more I go round that number, the more it amazes me, because partly it presents us with, I think, a progress problem. The future looks like this. The future looks like the past. A bit of the future looks like a bit of the past. It's very easy in the 80s to know which direction games were going in. I would play things on the BBC B, and they'd have text, and I would imagine when games had pictures, and I would play things with pictures, and I'd imagine when games had 3D pictures. Then they had 3D pictures, and I'd imagine when they had better ones. And then they did. And then, so to speak, this happened. And, of course, one of the things we've been hearing is that the future is diversity. A mature medium has lots and lots and lots of different bits. But I think there's something else going on as well, because I think this actually, it presents us with a bit of problem, because it problematizes our idea of progress, of what progress constitutes. Progress means more people and more money, or more technology, or how do these things relate to each other? Because the core games industry has been progressing towards a point it's now hit of photorealism, and to some degree, I look at photorealistic games, a lot of them all look the same, and I think this is progress. I'm going to go back and play Angry Birds. And a lot of other people are thinking that too. And this brings me to the attention problem, because competition for attention at the moment is brutal, absolutely brutal, and games are dazzling at winning, at beating other media. But the internecine struggle between games for attention is also pretty brutal. And I'm interested, that 500 million more people are playing electronically than when I wrote about the industry, or tried to, a couple of years ago, but that the vast bulk of them are not doing what perhaps one might have thought they would be doing if you're making wild predictions 4 or 5 years ago. They've gone towards casual social games. They've gone towards sort of knocking down blocks. And there are obvious reasons for this, to do with time and money, of course, to do with accessibility, to do with devices. But I think there are other lessons in there too, because if the future of the industry means anything, it's a question as to what these people do next or as well. We've got them, they're digital players, hooray. But they refuse to call themselves gamers on the whole. I mean, is it Angry Birds forever? What happens? And what is on offer for them? What do they do next? And to answer that question, I want to move on from gamification, because I think, as this slide hopefully illustrates, that there are a lot of perilous half-truths in the account of games that it gives to others and to the industry itself. And that a lot of the things being refined here, they are true and they are powerful and they are unignorable, but they are very far from being the whole story. So let me ask a question Ian so kindly asked for me, the difference between games and toys. Being slightly rhetorical here, games have rules, as we know, but I'm interested in it from the user perspective and the emotional perspective. And it seems to me that one of the key divides is that when I am playing a game as conventionally conceived, I am aspiring towards external standards. I am trying to do things which I will be rewarded by an external system. Get it through the net, get one for a goal. I am trying to progress. I am trying to power up. I am gaining my rewards, my satisfaction from what's going on outside me. Whereas, if I am playing the toy, if I am playing just playing, I'm doing it for internal reasons. I don't quite know what I want to get out of it when I start. By doing it, maybe I'll work out what I want. No one can tell me that I'm having a marvelous time. You can't walk up to me and say, you're having great fun playing with your doll, Tom. Only I know that. And the thing that interests me, as hopefully, again, this slide illustrates, is that any good or great game of the last few centuries, the last few millennia, let alone digitally speaking, has both of these things going on. Football, score goals, beat people, yes, but also the minute-to-minute skill and delight and pleasure of controlling the ball, the playfulness of it. This is absolutely crucial. These two are not oppositions. They are, I would say, absolutely entwined together. Because ultimately, if it was just about getting balls through nets, if there was none of, as it were, the joy and the present tense and the self-delight of it, then no one would watch it, no one would play it, and no one would care. It would just be numbers. And everyone knows that a number going up with nothing else going on is not the magic we call a game. This is the peril of gamification, that people outside it sometimes seem to think that if you give someone a number and make it go up, you've made a game and it's automatically fun and you're going to make loads of money, and you're not. I don't have to tell you that. You're really not. And so I thought, we know about game mechanics. People have talked a lot about the things you do to introduce this element in games, to the points, the badges. People are getting very good at this. We very rarely talk in concrete terms about the toy mechanics. So I wanted to sort of toy around with a list of questions about this half of the process that hopefully, I think, lead me to an interesting place. And the first one I have out of 5, I should say, just to give you a heads up there, is it intrinsically satisfying? It's fairly obvious what I mean by this. In digital terms, I think of platform games, of all platform games. I always think of Mario Galaxy because, for me, that's one of the most exquisite interactive products ever created. There's Mario Galaxy 2, in fact, I think. And I would not wish to underestimate the joy of the mechanic. You look at the Mario jump time, which I think is an interesting thing to do if you're sad like me, and you find out that it doesn't correspond to real-world physics. It's about kind of 2.5 times real-world physics, the air hang, the standard air hang. And that recurs through platform games all the time. It appears to be some kind of platonic exemplar of just how, in an ideal world, that's exactly what jumping would be like. And I think there's something in that. If you take away everything from the game apart from that, there's joy in it. A driving game, this is Ridge Racer. I mean, again, one of the great stories of why sports and driving games are successful are that there's a joy in the mechanic, there's a joy in the moment to moment, deeply satisfying, like controlling a football. Portal 2, one of my best recent gaming experiences. Awesome game, but also awesome mechanically, awesome in the moment. There's something about that. But this doesn't just apply to AAA games. Tetris, this is a Flash game based on Tetris, in fact, but the mechanic there, the joy of stacking bricks together, as you may or may not know, Tetris was first being played a few thousand years ago by the Greeks because they played it in the form of pentominoes and they slotted together these shapes to make tessellations. And they weren't getting a score. It was just very, very satisfying. And I think this applies also to the best social games. And we forget that very easily when we see the amazing and the important numbers. We forget just how deeply satisfying it is to have a farm or a city as your little electronic pet and to stoke it up and to watch it grow. It's like having a teddy bear, a very clever teddy bear, or a kind of mutant Tamagotchi. It's deeply, deeply satisfying, even if you take away those wonderful numbers and those accelerating curves and those appointments and all that. How free do you feel? There's a little thing for me. I think of games as, whatever they are, as a sort of safe space I come to be entertained and to have a great experience. Whether my great experience is 1 second or an asynchronous, sort of 1 hour every other day, or whether it's immersion. And I want a degree of agency in that space, in the terms of the game. And I like to compare, this is Vice City, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, my favorite ever games that I played on PlayStation. And this is L.A. Noire, one of the most stunningly realized games I played recently. And for me, the comparison was invidious, because for all its wonderfulness, L.A. Noire felt like a retrograde step from that previous game. Because when I played Vice City, I remember I was kind of playing at being the character in it. And I felt extremely cool going around Miami, shooting people, kind of thing. It had, for me, a certain freedom in the design that allowed me to enter into the space and fart around and do my own thing. And I felt sort of welcome to do that. And I felt an enormous constriction. It's a different kind of game, of course, L.A. Noire. But it sort of got me worried, the lack of freedom I felt. Because, it is a burning vision of progress of a kind. And yet, for me, there was something retrograde about that and about a lot of other things like it. And this leads me into this more general point. Is it underspecified? And this is a term that sometimes people talk about the beautiful seams in a game, which is a rather nice turn of phrase. And it means, can you do stuff with it that the designer didn't know you'd do? And again, this is a very familiar concept, one of emergent behavior, one of being free to go and play around with it. Minecraft, one of the great examples of this recently. The proudest moments of my gaming life, I think, was when I was, thanks to writing about Minecraft, I was accused of being autistic on 4chan, which is it's about as good as it gets in gaming circles, I think. Minecraft is obviously designed for this kind of thing, because it's a very basic engine. It's barely a game in some senses, but also we forget that Farmville and that many of the great social games, and I would say Angry Birds for that matter, because you have an enormous agency over what you do. You've got the stuff, it appears limited, but actually there are these sort of beautiful seams. You can really own it. You can be playful with it and within it. Number 4, it's the framework killing the experience. Another personal story. These are all anecdotes. I haven't got some statistics. I can give you statistics about me if you like. And this is a World of Warcraft map. Everyone always seems to mention World of Warcraft. I feel slightly legitimate in doing it because I've played it continuously since beta. I play on the East Coast Guild in the States, and I actually made a lot of friendships through it and go out and stay with my guildies on the East Coast. And I've been in awe of this game for many years. And I played it through recently from 80 to 85, when the new level cap came up. And I didn't enjoy that very much at all. And I wondered why I didn't enjoy it. And what I felt was, they've reached such a highly evolved pitch in the game, in accordance with the best modern gaming practice, that every quest I want to do appears on a map for me and tells me exactly where to go. It saves all the stuff for me. I have Quest Helper. It tells me where to go to. Everything is transparent and clear and bends over backwards to be helpful. It's geared up to just take me through. And suddenly I felt that this amazing apparatus of helpfulness and questiness and progressionist that keeps me in plot lines, linear progression all the way on the conveyor belt up to level cap, that this was somehow damaging that magical quality of intrinsic value, by which I mean that it's all done on belief. Why am I playing a game? Why do people spend money on games? Not because it makes them good people, necessarily, although it may make them better people, but because they choose to believe in it. They value it. It generates value for them. And I felt that a lot of the wonderful value that this world and the communities of it had generated for me over the years was to some degree rather sort of cruelly damaged by the seamlessness of the structure around it, taking my numbers up, because I kind of stopped believing in the little quest I was doing because it was so obvious that everything was on rails, because I was so helped at all stages. I wasn't ever wandering around and wondering or just being there. And that is important to me, that games are places we go to have other experiences. And that experience may be 2 minutes of fun and distraction, but I go there to have an experience, and that will always have a subjective and intrinsic element. And this leads me to the last thing, what's your own story? And this is where I hopefully, at least for me, answer my questions about progress a little bit. Because the most important story of any game at all, I think, is the story of your encounter with it and what happens to you, what experiences you have from being, oh, here's a game, to being, that was great, I finished that game. What happens in between there? And these are, you know, the key things for me, the key events, the water cooler moments, if you like, are when, you know, you talk about when this happened, when that happened, at last I did that, I found this all the time, it was under there. These are the things, these are the moments of mastery. And I would argue that the things that make a good narrative for you, that mean that I've had my narrative of Tom's encounter with the game good, are the same things that make any narrative good. We know what those are. These are old things. They're uncertainty, they're excitement, they are peril, they are challenge, they are highly related to social stuff, to other people, to sharing. There's all this going on. And I find myself in the position of saying that the narrative of my encounter with many allegedly casual, social, metrical, gamified games is a richer, more exciting narrative of Tom than the narrative of my encounter with a, you know, with a multi-million-dollar game where the narrative sometimes run, I went in, it was on rails, I went forward, I picked up the stuff they told me to. I had 2 surprises, 1 mild shock, and 1 challenge, and then I finished it. Whereas, you know, the story of my encounter with a little game like Drop 7 might go along the lines, I know it was a puzzle game, might go along the lines of, I couldn't get past that score. I suddenly found this combination worked. I discovered that my friend sent me this high score. It was really exciting. This is the thing. If you look at it from the player's point of view, that narrative is very important. And I sometimes feel that narrative is sort of cruelly and hideously neglected when people are thinking about what often passes for best practice, the structures of continual progress. So, progress. I've been saying this word all the time, and it leads me to my final point, which is linked to this. So, we're saying about narrative. We all know what the elements of a good narrative are, or we can look them up. They haven't changed much in thousands of years. They're about, you know, challenge, catharsis, surprise, love, sharing, hate. We know that stuff. And this is a kind of progress problem for games, because games and narratives are pretty elemental human things. The components of a good game haven't changed for thousands of years either. In essence, we certainly haven't changed. They are that fundamental. If you're looking for progress, you're kind of looking at the wrong medium in some ways. You know, chess is, people don't now say, you know, well, chess was interesting 1,000 years ago, but now that game is boring. Now, people may not like it. You know, dice, gambling. It's not that the Romans used dice and gambled with them, but nowadays that doesn't work anymore. Still works perfectly fine. And this is a big challenge. because these guys here, this is an authentic photograph of a Paleolithic man there. These guys here, if I, was playing Doom with them, the idea of chasing around in a big group and, shooting at stuff or throwing sticks at stuff or playing at that would be, I think, entirely familiar to them. They might have trouble with the keyboard and mouse or keyboard controls, and this is, so where do we look for progress? What does progress mean? Because I think it's problematic when you have, these sort of deep ancient elements that have been done before. And I think the answer for me is back in the people. It's all in our heads. And if progress means anything, it means using what we know to create a better experience in here. The game out there, whatever it is, whether it is Farmville or whether it is Portal 2 or whether it's chess, it only exists and only works insofar as it has effects on us and delivers experiences to us. It's an engine for delivering experience. And the question is, how interesting are the experiences that engine delivers? How many different engines are there out there delivering different kinds of experience? And the world of games is growing up, is diversifying, is becoming pretty awesome, really. It's becoming for everyone. But I look at those numbers, I look at the new arrivals in the world of digital play, and I don't necessarily see them picking up a lot of genres of game and classes of game in the future. And that's partly, I think, because when I look at this word gamification and when I look at the staggering financial and economic imperatives under which the industry operates, I see a lopsidedness. I see a great constriction. I see a great emphasis on one half of play rather than the other. And to me, that imbalance is dangerous and bad business because it leaves people's attention free to go elsewhere, because it fails to maximize all the assets at one's disposal. There's no reason everyone should stay playing casual games all the time forever, but they need other kinds of experience elsewhere. And so the thought I want to end on is that we need a language to describe play as fully and precisely as possible to make both good games and good business. This means understanding games, understanding toys, understanding people, and thinking about progress as experience and nothing else. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Tom. That was wonderfully insightful and fascinating. So just talk about progress for a second. I read somewhere that progress is all about simplification, not complication. So what do you think of that?
I think that's a very good way of putting it. I mean, it seems to me that if you look at the way that the rational sciences progress, people argue a lot about something and someone eventually is proved right. And often being right is a lot simpler than being wrong. So being right about gravity is an awful lot simpler than imagining 8 dragons flying around the world with moons on their backs. And similarly with people and behavior, I think you're absolutely right that there is an inherent rightness to some of the beautiful, simple social games and systems out there. You look at Facebook, it's not the world's most complicated concept, but it is its own proof of concept. A lot of games are themselves proof of concepts. So yeah, I agree. I suppose where I come from is partly asking the right questions of these proof concepts out there and saying, what exactly is it that we've proved? Because sometimes you've proved 2 simple points, but you've only noticed one of them, as it were.
Okay, who wants it? You know the rules now. This is a toy, not a game.
I don't know if this is a good or a bad sign. I'm not sure.
Here we go.
Tom, is this working?
Well, obviously not, no.
Try this one? Yes, excellent.
Yes.
Tom, a lot of the games that you described as liking were quite old ones.
Yeah.
Are there any new games that you think are particularly exciting or particularly exemplify the things you like about games?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, Portal 2 I was raving about. I mean, I've just finally completed that in the 2-player. I mean, that's the AAA game. That excited me enormously because it had, it was incredibly fun while doing all the AAA stuff right. And I sort of played it and I thought to myself, oh good, it is possible to have a game that is funny, that has a good plot, that also has a good player experience, that is also innovative, that's also a good co-op game. So, I mean, I play a lot of Flash games. It makes me the sort of scourge of people who wish to make money out of games a lot of the time. And I love sort of hanging out on Congregate and looking at the new games coming through there. And I like sometimes the sort of crazy little narrative ones and the thousands of comments you get beneath them, because that seems to me just incredibly fertile and a very good sort of proof of concept that audiences will take on interesting things and debate as to what they mean. I'm trying to think of another kind of cutting-edge game that's really... I really enjoyed... LA Noire was a stunning experience. But it was a stunning experience rather than a fun experience for me anyway.
Okay. Any more? Are we all done, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, in which case, thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you very much.